Have you ever felt the overwhelming urge to just disappear? Not in a dramatic way, but to simply vanish from everyone's radar, stop answering texts, cancel plans, avoid even the people you love. Here's what's unsettling. This isn't always loneliness. In fact, most of the time it's something far more complex, a deep psychological mechanism that kicks in when your mind reaches a breaking point. And if you stay until the end, I'm going to reveal a silent reason why some people isolate themselves that almost nobody understands. Because the truth is, isolation isn't always the problem. Sometimes it's a symptom of something much deeper. Let's dive in. The invisible weight. There's a type of person who doesn't isolate because they hate others. They isolate because they're emotionally exhausted. Think about it. They've spent years, maybe their entire lives, being the strong one, the listener, the problem solver, the shoulder everyone else cries on. They've carried other people's expectations, absorbed their pain, celebrated their wins while quietly managing their own struggles. And one day, without warning, their mind simply says, enough. The breaking point. This isn't a conscious decision. It's not planned. It's more like an internal circuit breaker that flips when the system is overloaded. Withdrawing becomes the only way to rest, not from people specifically, but from the emotional labor of constantly being on. And here's what most people miss. This isn't selfishness. It's survival. When you've given so much of yourself that you don't recognize who you are anymore, distance becomes medicine. It's not about rejecting love. It's about protecting what little emotional energy you have left. The social paradox. The irony? These are often the people everyone describes as so caring, always there, or the glue that holds everyone together. Nobody sees the cost. Nobody tracks the deposits and withdrawals in their emotional bank account until one day that person is just gone. And everyone's confused, but they seemed fine. That's because they've been fine. For you. For years. At their own expense. This connects to something even deeper. Feeling everything. All at once. Here's a truth that might surprise you. Many people who isolate aren't cold. They're the opposite. They feel too much. They pick up on micro-expressions, the slight shift in your tone, the tension in the room that nobody else notices, the criticism hidden inside a compliment, the rejection in what wasn't said. Every social interaction isn't just conversation, it's a data overload of emotional information, the exhaustion of perception. Imagine walking into a room and immediately sensing the couple in the corner who just had a fight, your friend's forced smile, hiding disappointment, the colleague who's resentful but too polite to say it, the subtle power dynamics in every conversation. Now imagine experiencing this level of awareness constantly. It's mentally exhausting. The protective withdrawal. So what happens? Isolation becomes a filter system. Fewer interactions equals fewer stimuli equals less emotional pain to process. From the outside, these people seem withdrawn, cold, maybe even antisocial. But internally, they're experiencing life at a volume most people can't imagine. They're not running away from connection. They're protecting themselves from emotional overwhelm. But here's where it gets darker, because there's a third reason that has nothing to do with exhaustion or sensitivity. Reason 3. Learn distrust 8:30 to 11:30. When safety becomes the enemy. Some people withdraw because their mind has learned a devastating lesson. Closeness equals danger. This isn't paranoia. It's pattern recognition. The archive of pain. Their brain has built a detailed archive. The friend who shared their secrets. The partner who promised forever and left the family member who weaponized their vulnerability. The colleague who smiled while sabotaging them. Each experience gets filed away, and at some point, the subconscious creates a protective rule. If I don't get close, I can't get hurt. The silent algorithm. This is what psychologists call a protective schema, a mental framework designed to keep you safe based on past data. The problem? It doesn't distinguish between the past and the present. It doesn't evaluate new people individually. It just applies the old rule universally. Distance equals safety. Intimacy equals risk. The tragedy of protection. The most heartbreaking part? These are often people who desperately want connection. They're not naturally cold or indifferent. They've just been hurt so profoundly, so repeatedly, that their nervous system has essentially said, "We're not doing this again." Isolation becomes a psychological fortress, not because they don't want love, but because they no longer believe it's safe to accept it. The invisible disappearance. Now we arrive at something truly insidious, something many people don't even realize is happening to them. Some people don't isolate because they're tired or distrustful or emotionally numb. They withdraw because they no longer know who they are when they're around others. The adaptation trap. For years, maybe decades, they've adjusted their opinions to avoid conflict, suppressed their needs to keep the peace, changed their personality to fit in, silenced their voice to make others comfortable, become whoever they needed to be accepted. And then something silent but terrifying happens. Their identity dissolves into their relationships. The clarity of solitude. When they're alone, they feel clear, centered, real. When they're with others, they feel foggy, diminished, like a ghost of themselves. This creates a dangerous pattern. Solitude becomes the only place where they feel authentic. The reconstruction project. So they withdraw, not to reject people, but to desperately try to remember who they are. Isolation becomes an identity recovery mission. The unsettling truth. If they don't withdraw, they feel like they're disappearing. But if they isolate too long, they risk forgetting how to return. It's a psychological catch-22 with no easy answer. And now, we come to the most delicate reason of all. When feeling nothing feels safer. This final reason is often mistaken for strength, for independence, for having your life together. But it's actually a warning sign. We're not talking about wanting to be alone anymore. We're talking about the mind's emergency shutdown protocol. The anesthesia response. When someone has felt too much pain for too long, the brain does something extreme. It reduces emotional capacity, not just for pain, for everything. It reduces the need for connection. It diminishes the desire for intimacy. It lowers the capacity for attachment. It numbs the longing for belonging. From the outside, it looks like strength. They don't need anyone. From the inside, it's emotional anesthesia. The cost of numbness. Here's the devastating part. When you disconnect to avoid suffering, you also disconnect from joy. You might protect yourself from heartbreak, but you also lose access to deep laughter with friends, the warmth of genuine connection, the excitement of new relationships, the comfort of being truly seen. You trade pain for emptiness. The question that changes everything. This is why understanding why you're isolating matters more than the isolation itself. Sometimes withdrawal is self-care. Sometimes it's healing. Sometimes it's necessary. But other times it's a sign that something broke inside and nobody, including you, noticed. The real question. Withdrawing from everyone isn't inherently good or bad. What matters is the why behind it. Ask yourself, am I isolating to protect myself or to punish myself? Am I creating space to heal or to hide? Am I taking a break or am I giving up? The answers to these questions matter more than you might think. The path back. If you recognized yourself in any of these 5 reasons, you're not broken, you're not weird, you're not alone, you're human. Dealing with the complexity of being a feeling, thinking, hurting person in a world that often doesn't make space for that. The first step, understanding. The reason behind your isolation is the first step toward finding balance again. Not forcing yourself to socialize when you're not ready. Not pushing through pain to appear normal, but genuinely understanding what your withdrawal is trying to tell you. Final thought. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to return to the world immediately. It's to understand your mind deeply enough to choose when and how you return. On your terms, in your time, with your boundaries intact. Because comprehending why you disappear might be the key to coming back, not as who others want you to be, but as who you actually are. If this video made you think about someone you know or about yourself, don't ignore it. Understanding is the beginning of change. And if you want more content about real psychology, human behavior, and the truths most people won't say out loud, subscribe. Because sometimes understanding your mind is the most powerful way to find your way back to the world. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself. And remember, it's okay to need time alone. Just make sure you're not losing yourself in the process.